In this video, we'll set up Batocera on a Raspberry Pi 5. Everything shown in this video will be linked in the description below. Installing Batocera to your Raspberry Pi 5 provides an excellent way to play your favorite retro games on your large screen TV, a monitor, or even an arcade cabinet. We'll discuss the installation, setup, configuration, and even a segment on light guns. If you find this content helpful, please let me know by clicking the like button. And if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, I appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel. Instead of watching 10 different videos, it's all been consolidated into one, and we'll do it all in less than 25 minutes. I'm John, and welcome to Wagner's Tech Talk. Raspberry Pis make great retro gaming systems. These little single-board computers can easily be connected to your existing TV or monitor and are relatively inexpensive. In this video, I'll be using this Raspberry Pi 5, which was included as part of the Canon kit. In this video, we'll install Batocera to the Pi 5, and Batocera was designed specifically for retro gaming in mind. The assembly is a breeze. You just insert it into the base of the case, plug in the fan and the sides, and attach the fan to the top panel. Pretty easy, but I'll add a link to the full video in the description below if you want the full details. Aside from that, you'll also want at least one controller. I like to use this clone Xbox 360 controller. You also may need a keyboard and a mouse if you plan to copy your games over USB. We'll talk more about that in a few moments. If you want to take your gaming to the next level, you could also add a GRS Sinden Target Pro or similar light gun to the Pi. But first, let's get started by installing Batocera to this micro SD card. Open your browser and visit batocera.org. Click the download link at the top. From here, you can pick the Raspberry Pi 4 Model B or the Raspberry Pi 5 Model B, depending on which model Pi you want to use. Click the download link. It's about 2 gigabytes in size, so while it's downloading, we'll switch over to how to write the image to our micro SD card. Open another tab and visit raspberrypi.com/software. Scroll down a bit and you'll find it's available for Windows, Mac OS, Ubuntu x86, or directly on the Pi itself. That is, if you're using the Canon kit, you can use the included USB to micro USB adapter directly on the Pi to write the Batocera image without needing a separate computer. But in this case, I'll download the version for Windows. Launch the installer and follow the prompts. We'll leave the Run Raspberry Pi Imager option checked and click Finish. Pi Imager will then start up. Click the Choose Device button and select the Raspberry Pi model you'll be using. There are a number of different models, such as the Pi 4 and Pi 5. I'll select Pi 5 here, then click the Choose OS button, scroll to the bottom, and select Use Custom. Then locate the folder where you downloaded the Batocera image, select it, and click the Open button. I recommend not having any other USB storage devices connected during this step to avoid accidentally overwriting the wrong drive. Insert your microSD card into your PC using a USB to microSD adapter or a microSD to SD adapter. Then click the Choose Storage button. Select your microSD card. Now click the Next button. When prompted about applying OS customization settings, select No. You'll then be warned that everything on the microSD will be erased. If you're sure you've selected the right drive, click the Yes button. The Batocera image will then begin writing to the card and then go through a verification process. Once done, click the Continue button and close out of Pi Imager. You can now safely eject your microSD card. After removing the microSD card from your computer, we'll switch back over to the Pi 5. Make sure you have a controller plugged in, along with the micro HDMI to HDMI cable to your TV or monitor. Insert the microSD card containing Batocera at the bottom of the Pi, then plug in the power cable. The Pi will then boot up. You'll see an intro screen as Batocera is scanning the pre-installed games, which, by the way, there are some pretty cool freeware games that are included with Batocera, and I'd highly recommend checking them out. One of the first things I like to do is make sure that all the buttons on my controller are mapped properly. Press Start on your controller, move down to Controller and Bluetooth Settings, and press A on OK here. Press and hold any button on your controller for a few seconds until it's recognized. And from here, you'll just map the A, B, X, Y buttons as shown in the image here, then the Start and Select buttons, the D-pad directions, the left and right shoulder buttons, then up and left on the left analog stick, and up and left on the right analog stick, the left and right trigger buttons. For the left stick press, well, just press down on the left stick button, and the same for the right. If there are any buttons that you don't have on your controller, you can press and hold a button to skip it. When you get to the hotkey, I typically press the Select button for this. Once done, press A on OK and B to go back. When Batocera first starts up, you'll hear some pretty nice background music. However, for this video it'll be a bit distracting, so I'll show you how to turn that off. Press Start on the controller, move down to Sound Settings. You can use the sliders to adjust the system or music sound levels, or move down to Front End Music and flip the switch to the off position. When you press B to back out, the music will stop playing. You don't want to just power off your Pi 5 without shutting it down properly. If you do, you risk file corruption. To properly shut down the Pi, press Start on your controller, move down to Quit, select Shutdown, and press the A button. Once shut down, you can unplug the power cable. Let's say you're having a great time playing your favorite game. When you hear your significant other yelling from another room, it's time for dinner. To exit the game, press the hotkey, which is typically Select, and Start at the same time. The game will now exit. Many of the features we'll be discussing will require a network connection. If you have an Ethernet cable handy, you can go ahead and plug it into the Pi, and you'll be good to go. If not, you can use Wi-Fi. To set it up, press Start on your controller, move down to Network Settings, press A on Enable Wi-Fi, press A on Wi-Fi SSID, which is your Wi-Fi network name. Select yours from the list. Mine happens to be Lucas. Now move down to Wi-Fi key and select that. Use the virtual keyboard to type in your Wi-Fi password. Press B to back out twice, and A on OK. Go back into Network Settings, and you should see your IP address listed here. And if you're wondering, no, this is not my public IP address. If you want to check if there are any updates to Batocera since you last installed it, move down to Updates and Downloads, make sure Update Type is set for Stable, then press A on Start Update. If there are any updates, they'll be applied. If not, you'll see this message. Next, we'll discuss BIOS and ROMs and where to copy these files. Next, we need to copy our files to Batocera. There are a few primary methods we can use to accomplish this. The first is copying files from some folder on our computer to the Raspberry Pi across the network. Open File Explorer and enter \\Batocera or \\, and the IP address of the Raspberry Pi, and press Enter. You'll then be prompted to enter a username and password. The default username is root and the password is Linux. Click OK and you'll see two shares. One is called root and the other called share. The one we're interested in is share, so double click that. When Batocera was installed, it created a number of subfolders for us. There are only two folders that are of immediate importance. The first is the BIOS folder. A BIOS is the basic input and output code from the original system being emulated. Not all emulators require BIOS files, but several do. I can't provide links where to download BIOS archive packs, as they are copyrighted material, but if you use those 3 words with your favorite search engine, you may find what you're looking for. The other important folder is ROMs. Under the ROMs folder, you'll find subfolders for each of the supported emulators. ROMs are the games themselves, and again, they're copyrighted material. However, they can often be found by searching for the system, game, ROMSet, archive, or any combination of those keywords, or by dumping them from your original media. On the left File Explorer window, we have the Batocera Share subfolder, and on the right side is a collection of BIOS files on external storage. I'll select all the BIOS files and simply right-click and drag them over to the BIOS subfolder and click Copy Here. To copy the games themselves, go into the ROMs subfolder, and inside this folder you'll find around 178 or possibly more subfolders for all the systems that Batocera supports. You'll copy the games into the appropriate subfolder for each system. For example, let's go into the Autonomous Way folder. You'll need to make sure that the file type from your game collection matches what the emulator supports. If you need to check, double-click the _info.txt file. Here, you'll see a list of all the supported file extensions. At that point, it's simply a matter of copying the games to the folder. I'll just select them, right-click, drag and drop, and select Copy Here. You'll then repeat for any other games that you want to add to Batocera. After you copy your games, they won't show up immediately within Batocera. You'll need to update the game list. To do that, press Start on your controller, move down to Game Settings, and select Update Game Lists. Select Yes, and now the additional games will be added to the list. Earlier I mentioned you can copy your BIOS and ROMs over USB. To do that, you'll need a keyboard and a mouse. Connect the USB drive or USB stick containing your games and BIOS files to one of the blue USB 3.0 ports on the back of the Pi for faster transfer speeds. Then, press F1 on the keyboard to enter Batocera's built-in file manager. Select the ROM subfolder, then the menu option View, Folder View Mode, and select Detailed List View. Again, from the menu, select New Window to make it easier to copy from the USB drive to the Batocera Share, then navigate to the folder containing the files you want to copy. You can also double-click the info.txt file if you need to see what file extensions the emulator supports. Select the game or games you want to copy, right-click, and select Copy, and paste them into the appropriate folder for the emulator. This method is much faster than a network copy and recommended for a lot of files or large files. Once done, select the File menu option and close Window to return back to Batocera. If you have games that won't start up, it can be caused by a number of things. A few of the more common reasons are BIOS files may be missing for the emulator. To check if the emulator is missing BIOS files, press Start on the controller, select Game Settings, move down to Missing BIOS Check, and if there are any missing BIOS files, or if they are untested, you'll find them listed below. That'll help you identify if there are any that need to be updated. The other reason may be that the ROM set you're using isn't compatible with the selected emulator. To try a different emulator, press Start on the controller, select Game Settings, move up and select Per System Advanced Configuration at the bottom of the list, select the system that isn't working, select Emulator, and instead of using Auto, you can try one of the other emulators for the system by selecting it and restarting the game. If you want to change the look and feel of Batocera, you can do that easily by downloading and applying a new theme. Press Start on the controller, move down to Updates and Downloads, select Themes, and select the theme you want to download by pressing A, and then press A again on Install. You can pick more than one theme. They'll be downloaded and installed in the background. To apply a theme, press Start, select User Interface Settings, select Theme Set, select a different theme, and B a couple times to back out. I'll show a few of the available themes here so you can get an idea of what they look like. I scroll through the list of SNES games, you'll notice there is no game artwork for most of the games. Oh, and also that many of the games have a small gun icon to the right, indicating that they're light gun enabled games. We'll get into light guns in just a few moments. In order to add artwork, we'll use what is called the scraper, which will go out to the internet, download the artwork, and automatically apply it for our games. Press Start, move down to Scraper, and under Scrape From, there are a few sources that we can use. I'll leave it set for Screen Scraper. Within the scraper settings, you can leave it at the defaults or make any adjustments that you want. One that may be important is the username and password. Here you can visit screenscraper.fr. The website is in French, but you can use your browser to automatically translate the page for you. Register for a free account and enter those credentials into the scraper settings. Then select the systems included during the scraping operation. Press Scrape Now. Depending on the number of systems and games, this process may take a while. Once done, update the game list as we discussed earlier, and you'll now see all the artwork for your games. If we look at the main games, we now have all the artwork, which is nice, but we can't see many details about the games themselves. I prefer to press Start, move down to User Interface Settings, then Theme Configuration, and change the game list view style from automatic to detailed. When we go back in, we can now see more games in the list and the details of the selected game. If you have a large list of games, you can easily navigate to the games that begin with the specific letter by pressing the Select button on the controller. Move down to Jump to Game beginning with the letter, and press left or right to select the letter, and then press A. I'm looking for Time Pilot 84, so I'll use the shoulder button to page down until I find the game, and press A to launch it. You can insert a credit by pressing the Select button and Start to start the game. If you're familiar with this game, you'll immediately notice the aspect ratio is not correct. It's stretched, but we can easily fix that. Press Select and Start at the same time to exit the game. With the game selected, press and hold the A button, then select Advanced Game Options. Move down to Game Aspect Ratio, and move up to select an option near the bottom of the list called Core Provided. Now when we go into the game, the aspect ratio looks correct. However, that will only work for this one game. Here we see Miss Pac-Man is also stretched. What if we want to make this change globally across all MAME games? Well, we can do that easily. Exit the game, select Game Settings, move up to select the bottom option Per System Advanced Configuration. Select the emulator, which in this case is MAME. Select Game Aspect Ratio, move up and select Core Provided. Now when you go into any MAME game, the aspect ratio will be set correctly. If you need a bit more performance boost out of the Pi 5, Batocera makes it easy to overclock it. Overclocking is a method of increasing the speed of the processor beyond the speed recommended by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. Only consider this if you have a good cooling solution for your Pi 5, such as the one included with the Canon kit or the Raspberry Pi Foundation's active cooler, as it will run a bit hotter and potentially cause damage to the Pi. That said, to make the change, press Start, go into System Settings, move down to Overclock, and make the change. For me personally, I wouldn't recommend going over 2800 MHz, but your mileage may vary. Once done, you'll need to restart the Pi for the change to take effect. Now we'll discuss light guns. When it comes to light guns, we have a lot of options. My preferred gun at present is the GRS Sinden Target Pro shotgun. It has a pump-action reloader, 4-way D-pad, and 4 buttons, much like the original Sinden light gun. The nice thing about these type of light guns is that there are no sensors that need to be mounted above or on your display for them to work, and are very accurate and responsive. The only downside is there is a white border around the screen to allow the camera within the gun to be able to track your position in relation to the screen. Guns like the AimTrak light gun are also very nice, but do require mounting sensors to your display and a little bit more setup is required. There are many other options as well, but in this segment I'll be exclusively using the GRS Sinden Target Pro. I'll also have a dedicated video very soon specifically for this model light gun, so be sure and subscribe so you don't miss it. I've taken the Pi 5 from the workbench and now mounted it to the side of my AtGames Legends Ultimate arcade machine. There is only a single HDMI and USB connection between the Pi and the arcade cabinet. This allows the Pi 5 to utilize the arcade controls and the display. The GRS Sinden shotgun is plugged directly into the Pi 5. When you plug in the GRS Sinden light gun, you'll see a small gun icon appear in the upper left and a white border will appear. A nice feature within Batocera is that you can go into Game Collection Settings, then Automatic Game Collections, and check Vertical Arcade, or more importantly, Light Gun games. What this will do is automatically categorize all light gun games in a single group. It's a huge time saver. When you back out, you'll then see a category for light gun, and with all your light gun games conveniently listed. Batocera has set up all the button mapping for the trigger, pump reloader, as well as select and start. Of course, we can remap those buttons the same way we did earlier, but the defaults work just fine. The Sinden guns also have recoil, and the type of recoil you want to use can be changed by going into Controller and Bluetooth settings, select Sinden gun settings, and move down to the bottom option, recoil. And here's what the different settings sound like. When I launch a light gun enabled MAME game, such as Area 51, you'll notice we have bezel artwork and the gameplay area is a bit small. This is all a matter of preference, but at least for this game, I like to see more of the game, even if it means the aspect ratio isn't exactly perfect. You can do this globally for all emulators by going into Per System Advanced Configuration, as we discussed earlier, and set Decorations and Decoration Set to None, which will basically look like this. We can also make a change specific for this game by pressing and holding the A button on the game, select Advanced Game Options, go into Game Aspect Ratio, and set it to full. When we start the game, it now fills the entire screen. There's much more tweaking we can do, but I wanted to provide some ideas on how to customize your experience. What was shown here today will help you get Batocera up and running on your Raspberry Pi 5. A big thank you to the Batocera team and emulator developers that have spent countless hours making it possible for us to play our favorite games. I hope you found this video helpful, and I look forward to talking with you again very soon.